Oh, Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first meeting of the Development Control Committee for 2026 at the Lake District National Park Authority. I'll start with the usual introductions that we do for people who may not have been to one of these meetings before. My name's Mark Kidd. I'm the chair of the committee, and sitting to my right is Andrew Smith, who's the head of development management. Sitting to Andrew's right is Kevin Richards, who's planning manager here at the National Park. And to Kevin's right is Abigail, who's going to tell us about the first planning application case before us. To our left is Daniel Milliken, who's a legal advisor. He'll also be running the timer for the public speaking. And to Daniel's left is Helen Hooper, who's the Democratic Services Officer. I think it's your proper title. Maybe I got that right. And she'll be taking the minutes. And importantly, to my left and to my right are the committee members who are making the decisions on the planning applications in front of us today. So the first part of our agenda is the apologies from members that can't be here. I'll ask Helen if you tell us who can't be here.
We've had apologies this morning from Phil Dixon and Rick Outhwaite.
Not from Andy?
No.
No, so maybe Andy will join us, maybe not. So next part of our agenda is the minutes. Members, can I sign off the minutes from the previous meeting back in December?
Yep. Thank you.
Right, so I'll just take a second to do that. So many pages. Okay. So I've got a few announcements to make before we get into the meeting properly. First one is the fire safety drill. So we're not expecting a fire alarm today. So if you hear anything that is sounding like a fire alarm, please treat it as the real thing. And the procedure is as follows. When you hear the alarm, please exit through these doors to my left. One of the members will open them, and then we'll proceed around the building that away. It's clockwise direction, and assemble out in the car park at the front. Also, the meeting is going to be projected live on YouTube as we speak, and it'll stay on YouTube as a recording of what's been happening today. And also, if you've got a device or something, or a mobile phone, if you could put it onto silent, please. Hi, Andy. So members, any declarations of interest on the meeting today? No, there's only one that I have to declare. It's not really an interest, it's just for information. It's the one in Staveley at the barn, Staveley. I'm on that parish council. I'm the chair of the parish council, but I don't take part in planning decisions. I just sort of run the proceedings of the meeting. So I think I can just carry on with that case because I've no real interest in it. Next on the agenda is questions. So any questions raised under Standing Order 14.2 relating to the business of the committee, which we don't have any today. Next one is public participation of a general nature. We don't have any questions or public participation of a general nature. However, we do have public speaking on some of the individual planning applications. So next, I'll ask members first about site inspections. Members, do you want to have a site inspection for anything that you may have seen? To raise? No. And I'll ask Andrew, any site inspections proposed from the officers?
No, nothing to recommend from us.
Okay, well, into our planning applications. So we normally do the planning applications with public speaking first. Now, that would have been number one on our agenda pack. However, that one at Brandlehow Cottage at Manstate has been withdrawn. So our next application to consider is number 2 on the agenda, and that's Mossgarth at Portinscale. And Abigail is going to take us through it.
Thank you, Jack. This application seeks planning permission for the demolition of an existing garage in Tim Wood Store and the construction of a single-storey self-contained annex at Mossgarth. This application is before committee today because the recommendation of approval is contrary to the parish council's objection and to the representation it's received. So the site is located in Portinscale. Mossgarth is a large arts and crafts style house which sits within large grounds. Within the grounds, there's an existing timber garage. It can be accessed from the road. However, there's also a pedestrian access through the garden, which links the annex to Mossgarth House. There's also a slate chipped parking area in Tin Wood Store. It's proposed that the garage be demolished and replaced with an annex in the same location. It would utilise the same road and pedestrian access and the same parking area. The existing timber garage is a simple single-storey structure, which is derelict, currently and in poor condition. The proposed annex would have a slightly larger footprint, would be taller in height whilst remaining single-storey. It will be constructed of Honister stone and slate to match the main dwelling, with a large section of glazing on the northwest elevation, which would face towards the garden. So these photos show the view of the site from the road. The site is largely screened by roadside hedges and trees and is only visible upon approach. The proposed annex would be about 1 metre taller than the current building, so it would be slightly more visible. This is the main public vantage point of the site from the road. Looking closer, you can see the pedestrian access to the main house, which runs behind the site. The proposed glazed elevation would face towards the garden on the other side, so it wouldn't be publicly visible. To the side of the garage is the parking area, which would remain the same, although the proposed annex would slightly extend into it. The tin wood store in the background there would be removed. These photos just show the side elevations of the garage as existing and the poor condition that it's in. Some representations have commented that the building would result in a new dwelling, which could be used as a holiday let. The application before us is for an annex to the main dwelling, which is acceptable in principle. I therefore consider the main issue to be the impact of the design of the annex on the character of the area. The proposed annex would be of a slightly larger size than the existing garage. However, it would be viewed within the context of the existing large dwelling and gardens. The building will be constructed of local materials that reflect both Mosgarth and the wider area, and would only be publicly visible upon approach, with the modern glazing not being publicly visible. I'm therefore satisfied that the design would be acceptable, and I recommend that the application be approved, subject to conditions set out in the report, including a condition to agree any external lighting and a condition to remove some of the permitted development rights.
Thank you, Abigail. Members, any questions? Jim.
Thank you for the report. Just in terms of size, would that meet the requirements of a dwelling or not? I can't remember the size for a dwelling.
Was it 50, high 50s square meters or something? I think.
Yeah, we think it would meet the technical standards.
Thank you.
Abigail, the parish council is concerned that it could be, as you've already said, an independent dwelling which could be holiday let. However, in planning law, that it's the use would have to be applied for a new permission to obtain that, and there's an informative on the below the conditions saying that it has to be used ancillary to the main house. So there's no way with this application could be used as a holiday let without further permission. That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that's part of the concerns I think the parish council had. Any other questions, members, before we go to public speaking? Nope, we have some public speaking for this. We have the applicant, who's Mr. Buttinger. If you could come forward and take a seat. So, Mr. Buttinger, I'll just explain the process again. You've got 5 minutes to speak. Once the 5 minutes are up, we'll let you know. And if you just sort of stay in your chair, just in case there's any questions from members. And when you want to start, just press the microphone button and then we'll start the timing from there. And you're on time.
Good morning. My name's Max Buttinger. I'm the applicant. I live at Mosgarth with my family and 2 primary age children. We agree with the views set out in the officer's report. Our aim is to replace the derelict wooden and tin garage slash moat house with one made of local stone and slate to match the main house. We very much want it to look as though it was built at the same time and to the same style as the main house. The existing garage is connected up to electricity, oil, water and Wi-Fi from the main house, and we'd intend to continue with that arrangement. The intended use is for family and visiting friends and possibly longer term for a particularly elderly family member. There's no desire to use it as a holiday let separate to the main house. Therefore, we're fine with the proposed conditions and informative set out by the officer, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? No, that was nice and quick. Thank you very much, Mr. Buttinger. So members, we'll start our discussion on this application. I'll ask as usual, who'd like to start us off? Peter.
Thank you, Mark. So I note that the parish council's primary objection has been dealt with the informative, and I note that it's taking an ugly and derelict building out and replacing it with usable accommodation, and I don't have any further comments to make. I'm happy to follow the officer's recommendation.
We'll take that as a proposal then. Who's next? I'll go Chris and then Jim.
Thank you, Chair. I merely wanted to second the proposal that we accept an opposite recommendation.
Actually, Jim.
Wouldn't normally discuss it further, but the only thought going through my mind was this was an opportunity to create another dwelling, a local home in the vicinity. It had its own access and it was detached from the house significantly. So that was going through my mind, but on balance, it's in the garden and probably from what we've heard from the applicant, the development won't go ahead on this basis. So I think it's an improvement and it should look nice compared to the existing garage. So thank you.
So we've got a proposal, we've got seconded. Anyone just want to say anything else before we go for the vote? No, proposed by Peter, seconded by Chris, that we go with officer's recommendation and conditions and informative as included in the report. All those in favour?
That's unanimously approved.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our next one, we're on to number 4. So we're doing the ones with public speaking first. So number 4 is Bell Cottage at Glenridding, and Catherine is coming to tell us all about this. Thank you, Abigail.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. The next item is at Bell Cottage, Glenridding. Members, you'll recall that an application for the retention of a hut for holiday purposes in the garden of Bell Cottage was refused at committee in August of last year. Bell Cottage has a lawful dual use as either a local occupancy dwelling or a hostel. This application before you today seeks a planning permission for a flexible use comprising either a mixed use of local occupancy dwelling house and 2 units of short-term holiday accommodation, or as a single local occupancy dwelling house. The potential to use Bell Cottage as a hostel, as it currently can be, is not sought to be retained through this application. The applications before you today, as my recommendation, is contrary to the previous decision of the authority at committee. Okay, so here is the application site. It's located at the foot of Greenside Mine in the open countryside. It's approximately a mile to the west of Glenridding. Here again, the application site, the green lines on the plan denote a bridleway which runs alongside the access track or as part of the access track alongside the application site, and the purple are footpaths. Okay, this is the application site here, outlined in red. That's Bell Cottage that you can see there. I'll next run through photos of the site, then look at the plans and discuss the main issues. So I'm now stood on the bridleway looking west up to Greenside Mine. Bell Cottage is on the left of the picture. And again, a bit further up the track, there's the dwelling, Bell Cottage. You can just see the access gate there, which I'll point you to in a few of the other photos. I'm now stood looking southward on the access track towards Bell Cottage's garden, and you can just see the roof there of the hut, and you can see it's a lower level to the access track. And now looking the other way, looking sort of towards Glenridding, and you can see the parking for Bell Cottage there in the picture. I'm now stood within the garden of Bell Cottage. You can just see the gate there, which I referred to before, where the access track is. That's the hut. And again, in the garden, looking down towards the hut, close to the access gate there. And a picture of the hut So the earlier photos were taken in the summer months, and this is taken at a different time of the year when the coverage is slightly less. So you can see the access gate there where the track is. And now looking up round towards Bell Cottage and the huts to the right of the picture. So again, looking at the plans, here's the site. The next plan here is a plan of the hut. It contains a living, sleeping area, basic kitchen and a toilet. And this plan shows the layout of Bell Cottage as a hostel, and it indicates that the hostel could accommodate 18 people. And next, the layout as a local occupancy dwelling. So it shows a four-bed dwelling. So this is a lawful use of the building, and the application seeks to retain that as part of one of the flexible uses. And then this shows the layout of Bell Cottage as part of the mixed use, which the application seeks to retain, as well as the hut. So one bedroom within the dwelling has a separate access, and that's outlined in red there, bedroom 2. The mixed use is sought for the 2 units of holiday accommodation, so the hut and this bedroom, and then the remainder of Bell Cottage as a local occupancy dwelling. So now going over the main issues in that photo, I've just put 2 together to show you where the hut is and the dwelling. So the previous application was refused on the grounds that the proposal failed to satisfy the exceptional requirements of Policy 02 for development in the open countryside and the exceptions of Policy 18 for sustainable tourism and holiday accommodation. It had also not been demonstrated that the proposal was acceptable in respect of nutrient neutrality and the impact on the integrity of the River Eden Special Area of Conservation. So the current application is different from the refused application. It seeks permission for either a mixed use as a single planning unit comprising, like I said, 2 units of holiday accommodation and a local occupancy dwelling, or as a local occupancy dwelling. It does not seek to retain the lawful use of Bell Cottage as a hostel. The applicant has also provided additional details with this application, setting out how the proposed mixed use and the 2 units of holiday accommodation help to support her existing business called Hiking Highs, which I understand runs mountaineering courses, navigation courses. So how it helps to sustain, the evidence provided includes the fact that her holiday units provide accommodation for people on Hiking Highs courses. There's a link between people staying at the units and then booking on future courses. And the applicant also states that Patterdale Mountain Rescues use the accommodation. I consider that the additional details provided by the applicant demonstrate that the proposed mixed use would help to sustain an existing business, and the application finds favour in respect of Policy 02. Whilst the premises was most recently used as a single dwelling house, like I said, we must also recognise that permission exists for it to be used as a hostel at any time. Should planning permission be granted for the proposed use, as I've said, that ability would cease. The proposals would therefore see a reduction in the potential for tourist travel as compared to the existing planning position of a potential 18-bed hostel use. I've also found the retention of the hut would not be harmful to the character of the countryside, and the development, although not supported by aspects of Policy 02 or Policy 18, wouldn't give rise to the harms these policies seek to avoid, taking into account the baseline permissions. As such, I consider that the benefits of the provision of a mixed use of a local occupancy dwelling with the 2 units of holiday accommodation and the inability to occupy Bell Cottage as a hostel would outweigh any conflict with the provisions of Policy 02, 18 of the local plan. In terms of nutrient neutrality, the applicant has demonstrated that as the Bell Cottage could be occupied by 18 people as a hostel, I consider that the proposed uses would result in a reduction in the total phosphorus loads and would add to nutrient burdens within the catchment. I therefore consider that the application is acceptable, and I'm recommending that the application is approved, subject to conditions as set out in the report, and that includes conditions tying the mixed use to the applicant and to her business. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Members, any questions, Catherine? So, Catherine, just on that condition, so that the mixed use, if it's used as mixed use, it's tied to the applicant as a personal condition, and it has to be used in conjunction with the Hiking High business. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right. So there's 2 different conditions. So condition 5 and condition 6. So condition 5, tie the use to the applicant, and condition 5, tie it also to the business.
Right. And there's no time limit on that. Okay.
No, no time limit.
Right. Also notice that there's no objections to this. I can't see any.
No, received no objections. Quite a number of letters of support, including from Patterdale Parish Council.
Thank you. Peter?
No, just have a quick question on that condition. So on the departure or on the sale of this property in the future, what conditions would revert or remain? So when it's not tied to hiking highs?
A local occupancy dwelling. No. So the hut's part of the mixed use for local occupancy dwelling plus the holiday uses. And when that ceases, it would just be a local occupancy dwelling.
Any other questions? No. Got some public speaking. Mr. Winter? You're the applicant's agent. So 5 minutes if you need it, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Chairman. As the planning officers pointed out, this is the second occasion that members have debated this site. We were always aware in this case that tensions existed between various elements of development plan policies. And since the refusal last August, we've engaged and met with the authorities officers and corresponded to navigate a way through them. This work, combined with the additional information that the applicant has provided regarding the nature of her business, has resulted in the officer recommendation to you today of approval. And I'd like to thank Catherine for her report, which comprehensively examines and assesses the issues involved. It seems to me that the headlines here are: the proposals crucially will help to sustain an interlinked local business, which, as the 23 letters of support eloquently point out, plays a significant role in the local economy, the local community, and in fostering furthering the second national park process of understanding the environmental special qualities because of the work that's done. Secondly, the proposal will have no adverse visual, ecological or landscape impacts. Thirdly, the proposal adds to the range of accommodation available to those on lower budgets, small room and 1 or 2 night stays. Fourthly, the proposal involves the cessation of the approved 18-bed hostel use of Bell Cottage. And as a result of that, we've been able to demonstrate that the proposal is nutrient neutral, compliant therefore with the requirements there, as the baseline will be the hostel use. Chairman, I acknowledge the national guidance that personal circumstances are rarely of sufficiently material weight to alone justify approval of a development. However, the representations that you've received set out the extraordinary contribution that the applicant makes to the local community, in this case, the church, the school, the local economy, the Greenside complex. And you can give that some limited weight. I accept limited, but when you add that to the report's conclusion that the cessation of the use of Bell Cottage as a hostel and the lack of landscape and ecological harm would outweigh the conflicts with policies within policies 02 and 18, I would ask the committee to endorse the planning officer's recommendation and approve the application with all of the suggested conditions with which we are all entirely happy.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. Any questions before Mr. Winter goes? No? Great, thank you. Okay, members, what do you think? Jim?
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for the report, and also thank you for staying with it and obviously working this through to where we've got to now. I remember last time quite a debate on this, and it was a balanced decision because it has got support from the parish council and a lot of the community, and you know, it's part of a business, so all things we would like to support. From memory, one of the things we were worried about was the precedent that this could set and the fact that it could be repeatable. Now, I think what's been created here is quite a unique set of circumstances, with the hostel being closed down, or the permission for the hostel being removed, and the fact that at the end of the life of this business it reverts back. So I think on that basis, I would be happy to support this application. I think it's been a very good piece of work to get us to that point, and I'm pleased we've been able to do that, given the support in the community and from the parish council. So it's a proposal well said. Would anyone want to go, Peter?
Thank you, Mark. Yes, following Jim's comments, I think there's two elements. There's the Bell Cottage, which is taking the existing 18-bed hostel permission and turning that into a local occupancy dwelling house. I think that's quite straightforward. The more complicated tension was the hut and the tensions which are outlined in the report from policy 2 and 18. I thought we have seen a clear demonstration of it supporting a local business, which was key. And I've made a note of paragraph 543, where you say, in simple terms, policy 2 and 18 seek to direct new development largely to towns and villages to minimise the need to travel, etc. And then the development, although not supported by elements of those policies, would not give rise to the harms these policies seek to avoid, and it would support a local business. So I think you've shown the tension very clearly how the things that the policies are trying to avoid haven't been developed, haven't occurred. So I'm happy to support. And I think finally the point about the repeatability, the conditions and conditions in it solve that problem. So I'm happy to support the proposal as well.
I'll take that as a second.
Yes, happy to.
Yeah. Anyone else? No. No. Well, we'll go for the vote then. Proposal from Jim and seconded by Peter that we go as per officer's report to approve. All those in favour?
It's unanimously approved.
Thank you very much, Catherine. So our next application is number 6 on our agenda. And that's land at Long Slidell. And Chris is going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the erection of 2 modern agricultural buildings, including excavation and banking, and widening the existing agricultural field access. I'm reporting this application to committee as I have received 14 letters of objection from 11 different households, contrary to the recommendation of approval. This is the application site located in Garnet Bridge. This is the proposed location plan showing the site outlined in red. This is the proposed site plan with the 2 proposed buildings to the northeast of the site and the proposed widening of the existing gated agricultural access to the south of the site. And these are the proposed elevations and floor plans of the 2 agricultural buildings. The dashed line indicates the eaves overhang on the top floor plan with grass in between the 2 buildings. The section at the bottom shows the existing ground level with the dotted line and the proposed new ground level with a solid line. This drawing shows the proposed access to be widened and the visibility displays of 19 metres in each direction after the hedge and wall are reduced to 1 metre in height. So this photo shows the proposed location of the 2 buildings within the field. It also shows the existing field access, which would be widened to 4.5 metres. This photo shows the site from public views from the road to the southeast and shows the proposed location of the 2 buildings at the top, the existing access to be widened, and the location of the public right-of-way which goes alongside the field. These photos show the site from the public views from the road to the northwest the photo at the bottom right shows the proximity of the site to the two neighbouring properties known as the Sheeling and Treetops. This photo shows where the two proposed buildings would be located as seen from public views on the public right of way. It also shows the proximity to the two neighbouring properties known as the Sheeling and Treetops. And these two photos are taken from the existing access, which shows the approximate visibility from entering the public road from the existing access. Therefore, to conclude, I consider that the proposed two agricultural buildings would cause no harm to the character and appearance of the area or cause harm to the neighbouring properties, subject to the conditions proposed. I also consider that the proposed widening of the existing access would not result in highway safety harm significantly over and above the existing use of the access, subject to the appropriate conditions securing visibility displays. I'm therefore recommending approval subject to the recommended conditions.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris, members? Jim.
Two questions. First of all, if you've got animals on hard standing, then potentially there could be a lot of muck that when it gets wet has to run off. Is it clear where that's going to run off to, and is it going to impact on the houses, or is the view that it will just run into the fields and be okay?
I mean, perhaps the applicant could explain that, but we did issue or discuss surface water drainage. So there's two water butts being put on either side of the building for surface water from the roofs. And then I think it was concluded that because it's surrounded by permeable fields, that any additional surface water from the two concrete slabs would be absorbed by the grass. In one of the letters of objection, it was talking about a large expanse of concrete. Then I think there was confusion about in between the two buildings, but there would be a grass strip in between the two buildings as well.
I'll pick that up later if you say. The second question, this is just left of field really, just came into my mind, so I'll ask it. This is the potential to concrete over a piece of green land. Is there any option or precedent to put a condition on it to say if the buildings came into disrepute or disrepair that they should be removed? I'm thinking if they were no longer used, they started to fall down, became an eyesore, it would be better that they were removed.
Yes, there could be a condition added, but members would need to find harm to justify that condition from the buildings.
Yeah, okay, that's helpful. Thank you. We'll pick it up.
I mean, there's a condition saying it has to be used for agricultural use, but presumably if it wasn't, the buildings would stay, just couldn't be used.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark, just to expand on where my thinking is, and we'll come back to the discussion later. It's things like the same as the wind farms, etc. You agree this stuff, but on the benefit that it's helping and giving benefits. And if it stops doing that, then we don't want to leave a legacy in the Lake District of a litter of unused infrastructure.
Any other questions, members? Chris, there's a condition there about the roof has to be black or very dark anthracite type colour. I'm guessing that doesn't require your prior to send a sample in first. I'm guessing, well, I'd have to ask the applicant, but you get the steel with the plastic coating on it and the black. But there's other things where somebody could potentially just paint it. Or do you think it's suitable just saying it's black, or do you need a sample first?
We added the condition because the drawings didn't annotate a colour and it wasn't shown in the application form. We thought due to the visibility of the buildings from the road and public right of way that the roof colour was important to sort of sit it down in the landscape. I think we were comfortable with just the colour condition rather than
Just making sure it's dark rather than an actual specific what it is.
We thought so. We put the two conditions because I asked the agent and they didn't know at the time whether they wanted anthracite or black, so we put a condition saying either or because we were happy with either or.
Chris.
See, one of the objections there is about there will be a likely need for lighting for lambing. Is there any lighting issues that concern you?
So we've put a condition on for any external lighting to be agreed prior to adding it to the building.
That's it. If there's no more questions, we'll go for our public speaking. We've got the applicants here, Mr. and Mrs. Dixon. If you take a seat, you've probably seen how we do it. It's 5 minutes. When you're ready, if you over the 5 minutes, we will we'll let you know and very politely stop you. So just whenever you're ready, if you press the microphone button.
Hi there, I'm Paris Dixon. So during 2023, we lost the farm that we rented for the last 30 years. So it meant we had no space for any lambing room or anything, any feed storage, anything that we have had for the last 30 years, basically just went in the span of like a month. We tried leasing buildings and tried doing everything like that, but it wasn't valuable for the business. And with all the extreme weather and everything that we've had, it's just causing more losses of lambs and livestock, and it's a welfare issue. It's not made anything very easy the last 2 years. This building is for agricultural usage. Any runoff or anything like that would be caught, and like we're going to use rough muck if there is any muck from any lambing buildings or anything like that. That'll soak everything up, everything like that. That makes sense.
Last year, we tried to get somewhere for lambing, but we couldn't. So we lambed them outside, but we lost quite a lot of lambs. And now the lambs are worth like from £100 to £150 now. So that's just why I want this building for, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mr. Dixon? Andy?
Yeah, thanks for that. So primarily you'd be used for lambing sheep. What's the proposed use when it's not lambing time? Just general storage or?
Just general storage of any feed or anything like that. Nothing, it wouldn't be used for anything else. It would mainly, everything would be agricultural use. The main use is just those 2 weeks if we needed to bring lambs or sheep in.
Yep. Jim?
Sorry, as a total layperson to this, just expand a little bit more. The thought is you've got a load of sheep in those pens and there'll be quite a lot of muck builds up while they're there. You satisfied how you clean that off. I'm thinking it's on a bit of a slope and it starts running off into watercourses and things. That becomes a problem. You're happy that is manageable?
Oh, it's definitely manageable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not quite as bad as cattle. Andy?
Yeah, I can elaborate on that. It's sheep don't like to be in muck and slither. They're in dry bedding, so there's very little water runoff off sheep. I do know that from my past life. So I just confirm that will be correct. That there will be no or little or no runoff from water from muck from sheep held in buildings. Yeah.
I'm guessing you'll need electricity in there to run lights and cameras and stuff like that, or are you planning to do it off?
We wouldn't want any cameras or anything like that. We were maybe a little bit of light just for safety so nobody's falling over. But it wouldn't be anything that'd be shining into any dwellings or anything like that, obviously.
Okay. No more questions? Well, that's great. Thank you very much. If I could ask you to go back to your seats. Members, who wants to start us off on this one? Agricultural building.
I want
Chris?
to move approval.
Straight at it. So
Yep.
propose, we go with officer's recommendation. Anyone else? Andy?
Yeah, I'd like to second that proposal. It's been from farming background. It is very difficult at certain times of year.
It is.
And where it's sited and dug into the banking as the levels would show, I can't see it being a big problem, so I'd like to second.
Anyone else? Preeta?
I don't want to drag out the discussion any further. I'm happy to support, but I would just like to say, because there were a few objections, the reason I'm so happy to support it is that the height of it at 2 meters, that's a significant distance from the nearest neighbours. I think its impact on neighbours or the landscape would be minimal anyway. So happy to follow the proposal on the seconding, but that's why.
Yeah, and it's only sort of part of the year you'd probably have the most activity. So, okay, we've got a proposal from Chris, seconded by Andy. All those in favour as per officer's recommendation?
That's unanimously approved.
Thank you very much, members. So we've got one more of our public speaking to go, and we've got number 7 on our list, and that is at the YMCA Lakeside in Kelsey. It's going to take us through it.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an application at YMCA Lakeside, their South Camp. The application is for the erection of a day camp facility with associated car parking and landscaping. The application is before committee today, as my recommendation to refuse is contrary to the expressions of support that we've received from more than 5 households. So the application site lies on the western shore of Windermere. It's adjacent to the Sea Road Highway and to the north of Lakeside. So this is the application site. It's quite a heavily constrained site. A lot of it is covered by ancient semi-natural woodland. The main centre of the YMCA activities are located mostly within the ancient semi-natural woodland, but east towards the lake shore as well. The application site is the area outlined in red. It's just a clearing within that woodland immediately adjacent to the highway. And then the green line that you can see running north to south there is a public right of way. It's the West Windermere Way. And then the access to the site, both the application site and the YMCA Lakeside Activity Centre, is to the south of the application site, directly from the highway, and then that runs east towards the lake. So some photos of the site. So the left-hand photo is taken from the access driveway, looking east into the site. So the main road runs through those trees and then joins up with the main activity centre. To the left is the access both to the application site and also to the West Windermere Way, and you can just see the field beyond that. The right-hand photo is just moving further into that site. So now we're looking north. The West Windermere Way is to the left. And then the gate on the right is about the proposed location for the access to the application site, and that clearing that you can see in the background is the location. So again, moving further into the site, so now we've got the West Windermere Way on your left, behind the post and rail fence there, and then to the right, the green area, that would be the access road into the car park. The car park would sit just further north behind the West Windermere Way there, and then the building behind that. And then the right-hand photo, again, just working further along the public right-of-way now, again, looking north, looking towards the approximate location of the car park and the proposed building, and then the ancient semi-natural woodland behind that, with the YMCA Lakeside activities within the woodland and beyond there. So these photos are both taken from the highway. So the left-hand photo, you're looking northeast, down towards the application site. There is some screening along the highway. There will be more screening during different times of year, but the right-hand photo is from the other side of the road, looking down into the application site. The site and the public right-of-way sit lower than the highway, and you can see the kind of open marshy grassland there, the right-of-way and the woodland behind that. You can't really see any of the YMCA activities from the highway or from within that site. So this is the proposed site plan. It's a little bit difficult to see the annotations at this scale, but you have the main access driveway to the south of the plan, then the road that moves up into the site with the right of way to your left, access drive on the right, moving into car park. So it's a large area of hard standing, parking of 50 cars, and then the day camp building itself with some associated hard standing. It's then proposed to introduce some natural screening, so tree planting to the north and to the west along the boundary, and a hedge planted along the tight boundary with the West Windermere Way, which kind of hugs the left-hand side of the red line boundary there. So this is the proposed building. So it's vertical red cedar cladding with a metal profile roof. At the south elevation would have a large solar array. That's the elevation that would face into the car park. And then the north elevation facing out of the site with roof lights. Building itself is about 31 metres long. The gable ends, so the west elevation is the elevation that would face towards the public right of way, although separated by the proposed tree planting, and then the east elevation facing towards the existing woodland. And then the proposed floor plan. So the day centre is proposed as part of the YMCA Lakeside's day camp facility. This would provide them with some indoor activity space, as well as some additional toilet and shower facilities, a kitchen and a storage area. So the application forms part of a wider redevelopment of the YMCA Lakeside site. It has been subject to quite a lot of redevelopment within recent years. About 10 years ago, there were some significant regeneration projects taking place, which included a number of new buildings, improvements to the site, and the now known as Stoller building. The North Camp has since been sold off, and so the business is now consolidating its activities onto the South Camp. This has, in recent years, formed 4 applications, 3 of which were approved last year. These were for additional buildings, jetties, coach parking and staff accommodation, one of which was approved by the Development Control Committee last year. This 4th application is now for the day centre. It is sited at the moment within a marquee within the ancient semi-natural woodland. This application site has been chosen so that they can erect a permanent building within the clearing within the ancient semi-natural woodland. It's one of the few clear open spaces within the site that isn't within the woodland and also isn't on the lakeshore. But as we've seen, the right-of-way does run through it. It has quite an open, tranquil character at the moment because it is a natural clearing, marshy grassland, and you don't really perceive the activities of the YMCA from the public right-of-way at the moment. Public benefits for the proposals have been put forward in that it would support the existing business, but considering the character and appearance of the area, it's not felt that these would outweigh the identified harm. Natural screening has been proposed, but this again would harm the open character of the space, and it would also have quite an overbearing and an enclosing feel from the right of way, which is currently very open. Also, the tree planting and the hedge planting would take a long time to establish and provide that level of screening. So for those reasons, the application is recommended for refusal.
Thank you, Kelsey. Members, any questions? Andy.
So you mentioned about the visual aspects. What about it looks very marshy and probably peaty. There's no comment, no reference to disturbance of that area.
We've had an ecological appraisal. It didn't highlight any ecological concerns. If approved, the application would be subject to biodiversity net gain, and they are proposing some on-site enhancement to the north with the grassland, also the significant tree planting and the hedge planting, but they would need to buy credits for the watercourse units. But no, we've not identified any ecological harm.
Kelsey, did we get any comments from the parish council?
No, they've not commented on this one. They did comment on previous applications on the site, but not on this one.
Can you remind us what their previous?
So they had concerns about the foul drainage systems on the staff accommodation buildings that was at committee last year, but we were ultimately happy that that was dealt with through the permitting agencies.
Anything about the character?
No, they generally weren't, but the character of those sites were very different to this one. They were
different
within the built-up area of the site.
Different. Okay. If there's no more questions from Kelsey, we'll go for our public speaking. No, Mr. Tan. Whenever you're ready.
YMCA Lakeside is the YMCA's national outdoor centre. Its core purpose is to provide high quality outdoor education and activity opportunities for children and young people from a range of backgrounds, ensuring that everyone has the chance to experience and enjoy the outdoors. YMCA Lakeside operates year round, delivering outdoor education programmes to more than 7,000 participants each year. Over 50 activities are offered on site, taking place across the estate on Windermere, on the lake, and in the surrounding fellside. The centre works primarily with primary and secondary schools, hosting residential groups ranging from 20 to 280 people. In addition, day camps are provided for local children during school holidays. In 2025 alone, over 600 places were offered to local children. The applicant also participates in the government's holiday activities and food programme, enabling 250 children from families experiencing economic hardship to attend day camps. Historically, the site comprised two areas, known as North Camp and South Camp, with activities spread across both sites. In 2014, permission was granted for the substantial regeneration of the whole site. Following a successful fundraising campaign, the approved building on the South Camp was completed in 2019, now known as the Stoller Campus. However, the development required a substantial loan to be taken out against the property. Financial impacts of COVID-19 then made it necessary for the applicant to sell North Camp to service the loan. This has created an unavoidable need to replace existing facilities. The sale is now completed and the facilities are only available to the YMCA for a short period. As a result, it is essential that replacement facilities, particularly for the day camp, are provided. The proposal before you today are part of the wider regeneration of the site, which will provide the other facilities necessary to continue the services offered on site. The building proposed is to provide a covered assembly and activity space that can be used throughout the year. These facilities are currently provided on North Camp and will shortly no longer be available. Alternative locations were carefully considered, including the woodland to the northeast of the site and to the south of the campus. However, these options were discounted due to potential impacts on the ancient woodland, and the other site was considered to be poorly related to the existing campus. In conclusion, the proposed development is essential to the continued delivery of the YMCA's year-round outdoor education provision and represents the only realistic and effective means of replacing the facilities that are being lost. Any limited and localised landscape impacts are significantly outweighed by the substantial social, educational and community benefits that the scheme will deliver. The proposals therefore represent a sustainable and valuable investment in the future of the YMCA Lakeside and the children and communities it serves. We therefore request that you grant planning permission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Mr. Tong?
Thank you. So that's really helpful, and I think it was information that, in terms of the loss of existing facilities, if it was in the report, I missed it. So can you clarify, if we refuse, what is the consequence in terms of lost number? So we're losing a current building. How many kids, days and trips and things would you have to stop doing if you don't get this facility?
So the day camps are currently, there is a building on North Camp that's used, but there's also, just in the clearing actually on the right hand side, a temporary marquee is put up there, so they will still be able to. They don't know the exact numbers, but there will certainly be a reduction in the amount of day camp facilities that can be offered. I don't know the exact number, but there will be, because some will still be provided in a marquee, which is, the issue is that it's just a dry space. There's no toilet facilities or anything like that. So there will still be the ability to provide some day camp, but not the good current level.
Jim.
Thanks for the feedback. 50 car parking spaces. I was expecting to see actually spaces for buses rather than cars, because I assume most schools bring them in minibuses or buses. And 50 seemed quite a lot. If you 3 or 4 in a car, that's an awful lot of people. So I was just wondering on the rationale for 50 car parking spaces.
So one of the earlier approvals granted the permission for coach parking, which is elsewhere on site. So there is coach parking. It's parking for the day camp, but all the other activities on site, because the approval that there is for South Camp doesn't have enough parking, because it was never envisaged to just operate independently of North Camp. So that this car park will be for the day camp, but also some of the existing staff on site. So it's for the overall needs of South Camp because there's very limited parking on the site. So it's not just for the day camp, it is for the wider South Camp site as well.
You finished, Jim? Peter?
Can I come back to that though? So where are those cars currently parking? Because you're not increasing capacity, or just moving capacity from one building that you're losing to a building you're proposing building. Why do you need the additional car parking spaces?
At the moment, when North Camp was sold, there was a deal in place that the YMCA could continue operating from that. I think it's till the end of this year. So the North Camp is still in use. So there is still parking for staff and things like that at North Camp. But once that goes, there isn't enough car parking on the South Camp. Today there is enough parking, but that is going to go because it's no longer within their control.
So when North Camp goes, and if you don't have permission for this development, are we to expect an almost permanent marquee in that field to the right there? Without toilets?
It wouldn't be permanent because it would only be needed during school holidays. So probably for most of the summer holidays, but as it has been for many years. But it wouldn't be permanent. It would be only during the school holidays.
Any other questions? No. Thank you very much. So members, interesting one. I wonder if anyone's going to mention Sandford or anything, but who'd like to go first? Sandford principle. So maybe applicable here. Who'd like to go first? Peter? Yeah, go for it. Okay.
Right. So the scale of the building and its siting in the countryside, as we see there, and the scale of the car park is clearly dominant and not policy compliant. I appreciate the benefit brought in providing outdoor education for schools and young people and wholeheartedly support that. It was very interesting hearing the update on the situation that the YMCA find themselves in with losing the old building. The fact that they're currently managing with a temporary marquee suggests to me that the benefit to young people's education of a large building in that open countryside is not worth it, given that they are currently delivering those young people's experiences with a marquee which is only there for part of the year. So I would support the officer's recommendations.
I'll go Andy and then Jim.
Yeah, so it's a current use is term time, summer holidays, whatever for kids. My worry would be what would happen with this building the rest of the year? Will another opportunity pop up that we've got 50 cars in there all year round? Because we've got a building there now, we can use that. It's the marquee, if the sole purpose is so it's just a better facility than the marquee, which could have portaloos, I suppose, and they needed the toilets associated with them for a short period of the year. It would be that another use would be generated to make best benefit of that building in the long term, which would have a bigger impact in the whole area than what the short-term pop-up holiday camp stuff for schools is. So that's my worry, is what could it turn into if it's a permanent building rather than a marquee that's just used for that one, the purpose that it's currently designed for.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Yeah, Jim.
Thank you. Know the area well, probably drive past it every other week. And I think I'm reflecting on the previous applications were based on largely around the existing footprint where existing development had taken place. This to me is brand new development, much closer to the road. The site, as I drive past it, you hardly notice it. This would bring it very much to the fore. It would fundamentally, for me, change the character of the place, the scale of the development, the car park, and the fact that for the majority of the year, from the sounds of it, there would be at least some cars parked in the car park as well. I think it's just there's too much harm, as Kelsey said in the report. It just does too much harm to the nature and the character of the place, and it will be seen by tens of thousands of people who pass regularly. And my feeling is that, unfortunately, I think we have to refuse it on that basis, because I'm sure other solutions can be found that are less intrusive to meet the needs.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? Chris? Go.
Well, you've quoted Sanford. It seems to me a clear application that that will be intrusive, and we shouldn't have it. We'll find other places down the track near the boathouse for this up to Sunday, I think.
Doug.
Chair. At the risk of repeating what's been said before, I would agree that it's with the report than what's been said previously, that the harm that it would potentially give to I believe the word you used was tranquil area, and certainly those pictures that we've got up in front of us, being so close to the road and so divorced from the rest of the site, as has been mentioned, the potential wider benefit compared with the detrimental effect to the tranquility, but also the general character and appearance of somewhere that is separate from the main site, and as Jim said, is seen by so many people, tend to make me want to go with the recommendation as given. So do we need a seconder for that? Do we need a proposal?
I've forgotten we had.
I'm not quite sure of the word we've had.
We haven't had a proposal yet.
In that case, I'd like to second that.
We haven't got.
Oh, well, you'd like to propose it? Yes.
Oh, sorry, you said we haven't.
No, we
Right,
haven't had a clear proposal yet. No, I've forgotten. But
that was going to be very simple, wasn't it? Propose.
Okay. Yep. Unfortunately, I mean, I agree. There is harm to that character of that area. The building, there's no way of hiding the building or, screening it away. Benefits to the business are there. It'll balance them up, though the harm is such that the benefits aren't quite there to override that, I think. So we've got a proposal from Doug. Second, does anyone want to second or put an alternative proposal in? Jim, second. Anyone else? No. Okay, so we'll go for the vote. So proposal is to refuse as per officer's report. All those in favour?
It's unanimously refused.
Right, members, that's the end of our public speaking, people. Thank you, Kelsey. I propose 5-minute break. Back here in 5 minutes. Let's say 10 past.
Train to London delivery on duties. But I love the trains every years. Remember right, I hated it for 10 years and I did it. I finished it with cold. Everyone sitting around the table next to me was screaming and coughing. We managed to did you find my house comes to be on quite happy. But the big changes are that's terrible when that happens, isn't it? Fortunately, my mother-in-law died. Never again.
Temperature's dropped in here, isn't it? I'm getting cold now. The temperature drop.
It's not the warmest room.
No.
Just the events and cake, that's what's been cold for the gym.
It's set to 21, but room temperature is just 19.
If it
As this. Maybe it's lack of insulation.
Built up a bit yesterday, got really cold in here, and I didn't realise till 2 o'clock when we left the room. It's cool, get warm again. I think you cast iron action statement. Yes.
Oh, it's gone.
Generally, look, how warm can we get?
I like pressing the little bing bong. Right, so our next one is number 3, Deer Park, Colbeck. And Phil's been waiting for us.
Thank you, Chair. So planning permission is sought to replace the existing dwelling at Deer Park with a 2-storey dwelling. The application is before committee because the recommendation of approval is contrary to the views of the parish council. There are 2 updates to the report for members, 2 changes to conditions. Firstly, the addition of a landscaping condition to secure precisely how they will deal with the boundary treatment surrounding the site, and the second addition is the request of details of the stonework that will be used on the stone cladding of the proposed building. So the application site is situated on the southern edge of the green at the northern edge of Coldbeck. So within the Coldbeck Conservation Area, the 2 immediately adjacent properties are Cornhill House to the northeast and Bobbin Mill Gate to the southwest. National Park car park is situated to the east, set down below the site, and the river again set down below the application site. The site plan here shows, I don't know whether members can see it, but there's a blue dotted line that indicates the current footprint of the existing bungalow and the detached garage in the bottom corner here. And then overlaid on top of that is the proposed building with the proposed attached garage in the northern corner. So broadly speaking, the proposals would replace a similar sized footprint to the building, slightly larger, primarily along the southern edge of the property and to the rear as well, and obviously an increase in height to 2-storey as well. So moving on to the elevations, the existing elevations here show a hipped roof detached bungalow with a detached garage. Where that to the proposed elevations would be raised up to a 2nd storey. Use again of matching similar designed hipped slate roofs and use of stone cladding to the roadside elevation, which is this northwest elevation here. Again, details worth noting, use of kind of bay windows and porch areas to try and reflect the character of the surrounding properties. This plan shows the street view. The primary public vantage point of the application site is from the roadside to the north. The site on the left-hand side and Bobbin Mill Gate, the closest neighbouring property on the right-hand side there. Looking further up towards Cornhill House is the other neighbouring detached property situated further away. And then turning back towards down the street shows the kind of general character. So the application site is a bit of an outlier. The surrounding properties are more traditional in their character and appearance, reflective of the historic character of the conservation area, predominantly 2-storey as well, whereas the application site is a more modern infill bungalow property. So moving down below the site itself, it's a view from the car park, shows the kind of different levels that are evident. Again, a public vantage point up towards the application site. And moving along, these views just from the kind of riverside, again showing the nature of the site. Moving into the site itself, a couple of photos showing the relationship between the application property and the neighbouring property, the closest dwelling that would be potentially impacted by the proposals. So already a strong boundary between the 2 properties. It's worth noting the kind of laurel hedge here that provides adequate screening between the 2 sites. Again, this is shown more in detail from this photo. So the proposals do indicate that this laurel hedge would be removed, but to mitigate for that, the applicants have proposed the construction of a stone wall along that section. In our view, that would be adequate to address any kind of overlooking that would be resulting from the proposed kind of side kitchen diner extension that's proposed as part of the application. So in summary, the principle of replacing dwelling is acceptable. To whom main considerations the design of it and the impacts on the neighbouring properties. The design, in my opinion, is acceptable. It reflects the character of the existing dwelling, introduces some more traditional features in terms of the stonework and the bay windows, which are more reflective of the character of that area. So I consider the principle, the design and extent proposed dwelling to be acceptable. You're then left with any impacts on the neighbouring properties. We have identified some minor impacts on the neighbouring properties, particularly Bobbin Millgate to the south. That, in our view, is minimal and has been successfully mitigated for the proposed wall between the two properties. I therefore recommend the application be approved, subject to conditions outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Any questions for Phil? Peter? And Chris? Do you want to go first, Chris?
It's a small inquiry. The title of this, demolition of an existing two-storey bungalow. That confuses me. Bungalows of...
Yeah, that would be incorrect.
That's fine.
It just has some colours.
Peter?
The objections are talking about overbearing and dominance. Can you go to the first photograph of the two houses together, please? No, not that one. That one. Do we know the height of Bobbin Mill Gate and how it compares to the proposed height? Because, yeah, do we know that?
Not off the top of my head, but broadly speaking, it would be of a similar height. So obviously, it's two-storey Bobbin Mill Gate on that front elevation, and we're looking at this elevation here is that view towards the roadside. So broadly,
if you go back to that photograph, broadly speaking, they'll be comparable. Broadly speaking, yes.
Any other questions? How high is the wall, Phil? Because the hedge is pretty high.
We've got this condition is to secure those details. So the
so it's not decided yet.
It's not decided.
Right. Okay. Enough to screen out the overlooking or whatever. Okay. No public speaking for this. Who'd like to go at it? Yeah, I'm guessing they're knocking down the entire thing and rebuilding rather than building a second story. Yes. Jim.
Thank you, Phil, for the report. I think it's very comprehensive. You brought the key points out well for me. I think they're all covered in the report. The conditions capture both the wall and the balustrade as well, I note. So that's good. Don't think it'll look unduly out of keeping with the other properties. In fact, probably less so than it does at the moment as a slightly modern bungalow. So much as I'm always a little bit reluctant about making things bigger, this doesn't seem to be doing any harm. So I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendations. Make that a proposal.
Peter?
Can I just, before we go further, check one thing about the parish council's concerns about using space for loading and welfare vehicles and things like that? Has that been addressed or not?
So yeah, we've got a construction management plan that sets out where things will go, construction traffic, welfare units. That's secured through conditions. Remind me the number. Yeah, condition 5 secures that method, but essentially all of the parking and welfare units will be contained within the site and wouldn't extend onto the highway.
Grand, lovely. And I've just made in my notes query lighting, and I'm just desperately trying to find it in the conditions because it probably is there, but is there a lighting condition?
There isn't at the moment, no. So if you did want to
that's why I wrote it in my notes then. Can I propose that we add a lighting?
So in lighting condition, you're essentially seeking control any external lighting that would be installed on the building.
Potentially a significantly bigger building, which could be detrimentally lit from the outside.
If you consider it reasonable, then propose it. I think my only reservation would be it is in a village centre location. There are dwellings. It is a dwelling. So whether or not it would be reasonable to control the amount of lighting, and then considering where the street lighting is in that area as well.
So other members may disagree, but I think it is important because if you can you go back to the architect's drawings, you could have bright uplighters on all the 4, 5, 6 corners of that building, at both at first floor height, you could have uplighters as well. You could totally flood the whole of the front of that building with light. And I think that if somebody's taste is to that style, they could do that. And I think that should be controlled. Others may disagree, I don't know.
Can I just ask a question, just poke that? Because if we do go down the road of a condition, then we'll need to write the reason. What's the harm that you perceive from that, from somebody doing that? What is it harmful to?
Visual intrusion and creating an over dominant presence, light pollution.
I suppose you could say to reduce the reduce the chance of undue light pollution.
I think intrusion on the environment and neighbours, and creating an over dominant presence.
Did notice in that picture there's a street light just outside the house as well, so it's probably kind of fairly brightish bit anyway.
So the street light down at the car park,
does it work? Yeah,
it doesn't be any to the front from those photos. So
just I suppose to make a comment, I just feel this is an ordinary residential house in a village full of other ordinary residential houses, and they could all go down their own routes on lighting, and we don't have control on that. But we do on this one, I agree, but it's whether we want to impose that. I know we do where there is the potential for outdoor activity or the potential for additional pollution, but I'm not sure we want to start going down the route on ordinary residential houses of providing a lighting condition personally. And that also means we then have to enforce it, of course, if appropriate, etc. So
I mean, the design code doesn't have anything about lighting.
No.
External lighting. Andy,
if we were going to put some condition on lighting, it must be something significantly woolly that we could go back and say it's not quite appropriate. You know, it's one person's idea of a little bit of lighting, and somebody else's that buys it might be.
I think what's been said, Andrew's got enough to put the condition on. Is that right? If you want to do it,
if I can, I'll just comment. Woolly conditions are not a good thing. It will obviously be very clear, precise, and enforceable, and well justified. I think that's really helpful, Peter. I think it's just a decision for members as to whether, as a matter of judgment, the position is it's just an ordinary house and not something that we would seek to control within this context, or it's just an ordinary house and it should be perceived as just an ordinary house in the street scene, not something that is prominent, dominant, and intrusive. And strident at night because of the way it has been illuminated, and those are both perfectly legitimate places to come to as a matter of judgment. So, sorry, over to you guys.
So we've got a proposal as officer's recommendation. We could have another proposal for as officer's recommendation with additional condition, or you could do it the amendment way. So just put your thoughts out there, and then we'll sort it out.
Maybe another couple of our colleagues would expect a view, and we can see where we're going as a consensus.
Doug.
Yeah. Looking at the drawings of the building, it's not something, given that it's a domestic residence in a comparatively built up in an urban area, as I would usually describe it, I don't think it's necessary to put a specific condition in. If there was a larger glass area for potential internal lighting spilling out, then I would be more concerned about the overall impression of the site. But looking at the drawings now, given the site as a whole, I would not be minded to add a condition for lighting, if we were minded to accept.
Thank you, Doug. Very helpful. Anyone else? Andy, Chris, any thoughts? Andy?
I wouldn't be putting a condition on for lighting. No,
right.
I would assume.
That's helpful.
That.
So we've got a proposal from Jim as per officer's recommendation. That doesn't include a condition. Would anyone else like to make a second or propose something alternative?
think I'm in the minority, if not the only person that thinks it should be a lighting condition. So I'm not going to add a condition or propose to.
Anybody want to second Jim's?
In that case, I'll to second the proposal.
No one else or anything else? No. Okay, proposed by Jim, second by Andy. As per officer's recommendation, all those in favour?
It's unanimously approved.
Thank you very much, Phil. We're going to move now to Parsonage Farm at Silecroft. We've been at committee twice before of this one. This is to Parsonage Farm, Silecroft. It's here because it's the applicant is one of the is a family member of somebody that works here, so they automatically get referred to the committee, those applications, when otherwise they might just be delegated. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's a good summary of why it's here. As you say, you've seen the site. This will be the third time now. The previous approval for the slurry tower was subject to the biodiversity net gain condition. This is the application to discharge that condition, and as you say, it's before committee as the applicant is related to a member of staff. Members will probably be aware of the site. It lies to the west of the A595, northeast of Silecroft. This was the previous approval, so you have the slurry tower to the right, and then this is the discharge of the BNG condition, BNG being shown on an area of grassland to the left there, and then planting of a hedgerow to the north. My side. So yeah, it was proposed to achieve the required 10% BNG through the enhancement of the grassland, which you can see at the bottom of the photo there in blue, and the planting of an 18-metre hedge to the north. We considered that the proposed BNG was significant, and we imposed an additional condition which required the submission of a habitat management and monitoring plan. So this application seeks to discharge both the national BNG condition and condition 3, the condition requiring the HMMP. We've received both. The biodiversity gain plan is considered to meet the requirements set out within Schedule 7A of the Town and Country Planning Act, and then the submitted HMMP provides the detail about monitoring and management that was required within Condition 3, providing timeframes and specifics on how the BNG is going to be provided. So we are happy that both conditions can be discharged.
That's it. Approval of the biodiversity net gain. Any questions? No. Who would like to start us off? Would anyone like to propose, Jim?
Comprehensive report, straightforward to me. I'm happy to propose to go with officer's recommendation.
Second, Andy? All in favour? Thanks again, Kelsey. So moving on to number 8 on our agenda, we're going to the very successful village of Staveley. And we're going to consider the barn here is to convert single dwelling house.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The application in relation to the barn relates to essentially the change of use of the ground floor of the premises from a workshop as it previously was to an extension of the flat above to result in the whole building becoming a single dwelling house. The use has taken place, the development is unauthorised, has been subject to enforcement action. This application seeks to regularise the position as a single dwelling house. The principal issue here is really relating to occupancy. Our policy 15, would expect a local occupancy condition in compliance with the supplementary planning document. The question here is whether a departure from that is justified by the past circumstances relating to the flat at the site. Now, the flat was granted planning permission at the time that we, as the Lake District Special Planning Board, initially sought to impose local occupancy conditions. So in 1983, the permission was granted with a local occupancy limitation, South Lakeland wide. By 1985, it was clear that the authority was not getting support for that approach through the planning system, and we sent a letter to each of the dwelling houses which was subject, the owners of dwelling houses were subject to those conditions, saying that we as an authority would not, or the SPB at the time, would not seek to enforce any breach of that occupancy condition, and that if the applicant wished to regularise the position by application, they could do so. Now, in this case, the applicant did not do so. So the legacy condition remains, but also the letter remains and is in place, and it has not been rescinded by this authority. So we have a position where a material change of use has taken place. Part of the building already has residential use subject to an occupancy condition. We have said we will not enforce that occupancy condition. In the meantime, they have converted the ground floor as an extension to the dwelling house. So we have a degree of control through the planning system, through that change of use over what happens to the property. And we feel that this is an unusual case, and a particular case where a compromise position is appropriate, having regard to the weight that needs to be given to that letter in 1985 saying that we will not enforce the occupancy limitation against the flat, and that in order to secure a positive use for the building and use as a sole or main dwelling house would achieve the thrust of the requirements of policy 15 to secure viable communities and accommodation which is restricted to permanent occupation by people who are going to live and work in that community. So it's an unusual one and a very particular set of circumstances. It's about weighting the planning history specific to this proposal, the site, and the planning policy applicable to the Lake District in general, and a compromise position of sole or main dwelling appears to us to be a sensible position and a reasonable position given the weighting to be given to those various material considerations. So the recommendation is approval on that basis.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions for Ben? Jim?
Thank you for the clarification on the condition. One other question, car parking came up, and from what I've understood from the report, there isn't any car parking for this property. Would the recommendation, just so I'm trying to think what's going through my mind, would we have approved this development without any car parking historically? Normally we'd look for a couple of spaces, wouldn't we, to ensure no off-road parking. So what are your thoughts on the car parking arrangements of the property? In 1983, we appear to have granted planning permission for a flat and a workshop downstairs without any car parking provision. So the lawful position is that there is a flat without any car parking provision and a workshop without any car parking provision. This proposal is for a dwelling without any car parking provision. It does not seem reasonable to refuse planning permission on that basis. That's really helpful clarity.
In practice, because I know it quite well, it currently used for holiday let. If it became sole principal, they would get a permit for the road. Also, that those cars next door, that's a free car park that the parish council looks after. So there is parking about for a permanent resident. Any other questions? Ben, it was just on that. If it becomes sole or principal, I'm guessing it can't be holiday let.
That's correct. That's the primary purpose of a sole or principal, is to ensure it can't be holiday let, it can't be second hand.
Yeah, because at the minute it is. And those letters going around from 1985, I've had a few of those at the committee over the years, and the committee has always honoured them in some way from what the special planning board back then decided. Okay, no public speaking. Would anyone like to start us off? I can pick. Jim.
I think it's a sensible compromise. The car parking's helped, thank you. That was just a niggle in my mind, and Mark said a local insight. So I think it's a sensible compromise position, and it least secures a home for in an important village as principal occupancy. So for me, I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendation and do that as a proposal.
Happy to second if other people haven't got any questions.
Any others? Nope. Okay. Proposal James, seconded by Peter to grant as per officer's recommendation. All those in favour?
It's unanimously approved.
Thank you, Ben. Our next one is number 9, and that's Latindales at Compston Road in Ambleside, a guest house to a holiday let.
Thank you, Chair. Latindales is an existing 6-bedroom guest house on Compston Road in Ambleside with 1-bedroom owners accommodation. The proposals are to change the whole building to a flexible use as either a single self-catering holiday letting unit or a single dwelling or a house in multiple occupation. The proposals are being reported to you today because Lakes Parish Council object to specifically the HMO part of the proposals, not to the other parts of the proposals in terms of holiday letting or use as a single dwelling. Site there in Ambleside on Compston Road, immediately adjacent to the 591, so main road through town, busy area of town, edge of the primary shopping area, mixture of different uses, guest house uses, other HMOs, existing HMOs, other holiday letting uses, and a number of recent permissions for a similar proposal, essentially a flexible use between permanent dwelling or holiday let or HMO. You'll see that Lakes Parish Council is specifically concerned about the lack of on-site management. It's our view that that's not necessary in the circumstances, and we've taken that view on similar sites in the recent past. We don't see anything that's different about these proposals that we should take a different view. Buildings there on the left, Victorian semi-detached building, local stone and slate. That's it there. Buildings either side, guest houses and holiday lets. This is a rear view showing the building on the left hand side in the left picture, and the left hand, the right hand side of that semi-detached pair in the right hand picture. And that's the floor plan, which, as I say, would enable use for any of those 3 flexible uses, and we're taking the owner's accommodation as well. So 7 bedrooms in total, incorporating the existing owner's accommodation. The recommendation is to approve with conditions as per the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions? Chris?
Can you just repeat that there are several other HMOs in that street?
Yeah, and specifically permissions for the committee have given recently. I'm not aware that those have necessarily been implemented for the HMO use, but there is permission there for nearby buildings to be used as an HMO.
Were they objected to at the time? Recently?
They were for similar reasons.
Most of these have objections from parish councils across the lakes.
Presumably noise, or
I think the perception is that people think an HMO is going to be create more disturbance than a guest house would, or even a holiday let.
I find that argument strange to accept.
That's the thing. We would need evidence really to show how would that HMO use be significantly more harmful than a current guest house use, and we just don't have that. Yeah, you don't know. I mean, you could argue it's less disturbing than a guest house use as well. Peter?
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, on the HMO issue, we see this again and again, that there's the perception that residents of an HMO would be noisier. We've had representations on a recent one in Keswick where they argued exactly the opposite, which is that the HMO residents are going to be working in the hospitality industry. They're going to be working late days and evenings. They're all one person in a room, not two. They're not part of a big social group that's hired a cottage for a party. They're going to be less disruptive, produce less litter, and have fewer cars, and therefore their negative impact is significantly less than the alternative uses. And I quoted the figure last time we were discussing HMOs that 61% of tourist businesses say lack of staff is limiting their operating capacity, and staff accommodation is a major problem. So HMOs help resolve this. And if parish councils want to complain about the perceived noise and negative impacts of HMOs, then they need to provide some evidence, which nobody has done. So I'm very happy to support.
So is that proposal, Peter? Anyone else want to say anything or second? Jim?
I'll just support exactly what Peter said. We're interested in getting different views. And I think we've actually been given some evidence by Keswick about the impact of holiday homes, but there's never been any similar evidence about HMOs. And I feel that the car issue, the working issue, the local profile, I think that satisfies. Plus the report evidence of location, which was a busy location where there were other things going on with traffic as well. So I think it's a good option, and the more we can do to provide that sort of accommodation in the lakes will help the businesses. And it looks like a good choice. So I'm very happy to second the proposal.
At one point before we vote.
I'll go with Doug and then back to you, Peter.
I'd just like to concur with the previous two comments. I've had HMOs before me outside the park, and exactly those arguments have been battered to and fro, both in favour and against, but against them hasn't had the merit of any proof or justification with any facts. And so if these comments are made in the future, I would value something concrete to back up that particular argument from any parish council. Thank you.
Just one quick point. I'd like to commend Keswick Town Council for what they did with working with one of the applicants of an HMO recently, where they liaised with them to agree a terms of reference or a plan which the owner of the HMO agreed with their occupants. So they kind of signed a code of conduct and behaviour and things like that for the people renting, using the HMO, which took all of the concerns that Keswick had away, and they were happy to support. So I think that's a good model to look for in the future with HMOs.
Yeah, I suppose as more and more come online, we'll build up a bit of a picture of how they are affecting the community of the area. So we've got a proposal, I've forgotten now, a proposal from Peter and seconded by Jim. As per officer's report, all those in favour?
It's unanimously approved.
So going down the road a bit, we're going to number 6, Glebe Gardens, Windermere. Abigail's come back to tell us about a removal of a garage.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the removal of the garage and alterations to the bungalow at 6 Glebe Gardens. As originally submitted, the proposed scheme had large sections of vertical timber cladding, and the Town Council objected to the application on the grounds of inappropriate design, material and appearance. They stated that the extensive use of timber cladding was not in keeping with surrounding properties and that white render would be more appropriate. The applicant has since amended the application to remove the timber cladding and replace it with white render. However, we do not have a revised position from the Town Council. So the application is before committee today because the recommendation of approval is contrary to the Town Council's objection. So the application site is located in Bowness and Windermere. The house is a detached dwelling. It forms part of a housing development with other dwellings constructed of render and slate, specifically 1 to 12 Lake Gardens, which sit around the end of the cul-de-sac. are all coherent semi-detached dwellings, whilst 1 to 7 glebe gardens are detached and slightly vary in form. The site is currently accessed to the north with parking spaces to the front. The main dwelling is rendered with a pitched slate roof. There's also a small porch on the north elevation and an adjoining flat roof garage on the side. This application proposes a flat roof extension to the north with the porch and garage being removed. The existing access will be blocked by the beech hedge and a new access would be created in the southwest corner of the site. The proposed extension would be rendered to match the main dwelling with anthracite aluminium window frames. There will be a large glazed opening on the southwest elevation with other smaller glazed doors proposed on both the extension and the main dwelling. This photo shows the rendered, relatively traditional appearance of dwellings along the cul-de-sac. And this shows 6 glebe gardens, which have a slightly different appearance, although remaining similar in materials and appearance. This photo shows the main public vantage point presently. This is the northwest elevation. The stone porch would be removed and the proposed extension would extend out from this elevation. This is the adjoining garage, which would also be removed. Looking at the other side of the dwelling, this is the southwest elevation. And as you can see, it's largely screened by the beech hedge and the fencing at the boundary. And the new access is proposed in the corner, which is on the right-hand side of this photo. Turning around to look back towards the north, this is where the extension is proposed, where the existing driveway is. It would have very limited, if any, public visibility as the beech hedge is proposed to cover the existing access. This is just taken further down on the cul-de-sac to show the more distant public views afforded of the site. In summary, I consider the main issues to be the impact of the design of the extension on the character of the area and the impact on neighbouring amenity. In terms of design, the flat roof extension is noticeably different from the form of the existing dwellings in the area, and the large amounts of glazing would introduce a more modern appearance. Nevertheless, the extension would remain subservient to the main dwelling. It would be fully rendered to reflect surrounding dwellings and would be on a site which is currently well screened by a large beech hedge. In terms of amenity, the extension would be single storey and sited at a sufficient distance that it wouldn't result in any harmful impact on amenity. Overall, I recommend that the application be approved, subject to the conditions set out in the report.
Thank you, Abigail. Any questions for Abigail? No. Well, we'll go straight into it. What do you think? Fairly standard alterations, Jim?
I think it was a good catch by the parish council in terms of the finish. It would have looked quite different based on the current design and the screening. I don't have a problem with what's being proposed.
I think the main thing the parish council are worried about was the timber. It seems to have gone now, so that's potentially addressed their concerns or some of their concerns. Do you want to make that proposal, Jim?
I'm happy to propose.
Anyone else? Chris, second it. Any other comments? No? Okay, we'll go straight for the vote. All those in favour? Did you get Jim and Chris? Yep. All those in favour? That's Professor's recommendation.
Unanimously approved.
Okay, one more to go, members. Thank you, Abigail. Back up, Ben. So we're going to Newstead, a new lodge, a new road in Windermere.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another application for the change of use of a guest house to alternative flexible uses. So Newstead and New Lodge are located just to the south of Windermere Town Centre on New Road as it becomes Lake Road going down towards Bowness. Location is a large detached dwelling house, essentially in collection of other similar buildings, some of which are guest house, some of which are permanently occupied dwellings. This is the character, so very imposing Victorian Edwardian house, and the building at the back there is a relatively recently built building which was erected as in the report 2010 permission. Accommodation occupied as part of the dwelling house of the guest house known as Newstead, either as service guest accommodation or by staff and their dependents. In recent years, it's been used as the owner's accommodation for the property. There is an unauthorised change of use has already taken place here, in that the guest house use has ceased, and the Newstead, the big house on the front, is occupied as a self-catering holiday let. New lodge at the back remains occupied by the owners of the site, no longer the proprietors of the guest house, but the owners of the of both parts of the property. So the application is to change the use of Newstead, the former guest house at the front, to either self-catering holiday accommodation or a single dwelling with a permanent occupancy condition, sole or main, and New Lodge to become either a single holiday let unit or a single dwelling house with a local occupancy condition. That would be the approach that is essentially consistent with policy 18, which supports the change of use of guest houses to other tourism accommodation. In this case, the tourism accommodation would be the self-catering use. It is also compliant in principle with policy 15, which permits, with appropriate evidence, it permits the change of use of former guest houses to one unit to be a sole or main, any additional units to be local occupancy. So that's what's being proposed in this case. This is the layout. As you can see, you've got Newstead on the front, New Lodge tucked in at the back. There are similar arrangements on the adjacent property to the south. Oakdean to the north is a private dwelling house in a spacious plot, and you'll see that there's a representation from that quarter in the reference in the papers. But you can see the relationship between the properties on that shot. Starting with Newstead. So Newstead is a large 4-square building. It has some outdoor seating area at the rear, and you can just see New Lodge tucked at the back there. There is parking dedicated for Newstead in that area there, which is it's a shared area between Newstead and New Lodge at present. You just go back, you can see that the grey car parking area between New Lodge and Newstead, and you can also see the grey outside seating area, which is the outside seating area to Newstead. New Lodge has a slightly different character, slightly more contemporary, and the use of larger windows and this little balcony arrangement. It has a little grassed garden. Again, you can see that arrangement there, that pair of dormers to just to the north of where it says New Lodge. That's the pair of dormers with that little balcony and that grassed garden area there. That's that arrangement. And this is the relationship between New Lodge and Oakdean. There's a high stone boundary wall and some planting on the boundary. Obviously, there is this balcony which will afford some views over that wall and some mutual overlooking between New Lodge as existing and Oakdean. So that's the core of it. The proposals in policy principle terms we consider to be compatible with policies 15 and policies 18 in relation to the permanent occupancy and the holiday letting uses respectively. The relationship between New Lodge and Oakdean needs to be seen in the context of the planning condition, which permits the use of New Lodge by staff and their dependents as at present, or as service guest accommodation. So New Lodge could be just extra guest house letting rooms at present, with the degree of overlooking that the neighbour is concerned about from a self-catering use. And I don't see any meaningful difference between those two possible options. With regard to the town council's representations, I understand where they're coming from. However, while New Lodge may functionally be being used as though it were a dwelling at present, that is actually unauthorised. The lawful use of New Lodge is as part of a guest house use, a single guest house use, which is the whole site, and it would permit it to be used as self-catering, serviced accommodation, or as staff accommodation, should the owners wish to use it in that way. So the proposals for flexible use in this case, we don't see any harm to policy. We don't see any harm that would justify refusal to neighbour amenity, and no meaningful effect on character. So recommendation is one of approval.
Thank you, Ben. Chris.
Did I hear you correctly that New Lodge, with its balcony arrangements and Oakdean, mutually overlook each other?
Yes, so if we go back to the this site plan, you see New Lodge there essentially faces north over its little garden, and it looks, the upper floor effectively looks towards the rear of Oakdean.
Yeah.
And it is possible to sit on that balcony or look out of those upper floor windows and see into the garden of Oakdean.
And similarly from Oakdean,
and from Oakdean, it would be possible to sit on the terrace or the back windows of that house and see towards New Lodge. That is the current situation. There is some intervening screening, but it may not be wholly effective against use of the upper floor. New Lodge, as I say, is not a dwelling house at present, but it is part of a wider guest house use and can be used however the owners of that guest house use wish to use it, whether as owners accommodation or as serviced accommodation.
Any other questions? No. Would anyone like to start a discussion off? So, policy compliant, to actually go to a permanent house without the holder uses actually would require marketing exercises and things like that.
The marketing exercise is written into the guidance of the policy. Now, we have regularly, I think we've set it out, policy paragraph 5.9. We have taken the position that, 511, the purpose of the marketing exercise is to provide evidence demonstrating that the proposal would not create a shortage of guest houses in the locality, with the aim or policy aim of there being no detrimental impact on the range of visitor accommodation types in an area. The area would be the parish of Windermere and Bowness. I think we can still be reasonably content that the Windermere and Bowness does not have a shortage of guest house or other serviced accommodation at present, and therefore we don't feel that it is necessary to insist on the marketing exercise in the case that the owner wishes to include permanent or local occupancy residential. The alternative would be you just apply for self-catering without the flexibility to use it for local people, and it's policy compliant and it's acceptable.
Yeah,
we prefer this position where we take this nuanced position.
We have granted a few of these flexible uses already. Jim.
My view is the change of use of the main house is not an issue. We've done many of those, and I think those conditions are satisfied. I recognise the concern was really what one might describe as that lost opportunity to secure a local dwelling house in New Lodge at the rear. But I think Ben's explained very clearly why what this is a pragmatic way forward. And it does give us the potential that at some point in the future we will get that house back into the housing market. which would be a good result. So I'm very happy to go with officers' recommendations on this one.
Okay, we'll take that as a proposal. Would we get a seconder? Shall I go for? Put your hand. Who gets your hand up first? That's all I can do. Peter, right? Second by Peter. Any other comments before we go to the vote? No, okay, so proposed by Jim, second by Peter, or as per officer's recommendation. All those in favour?
It's unanimously approved.
And that's the end of our planning applications. Thank you very much, Ben. So going through the rest of the agenda, we've got the delegated planning applications, both those approved and refused. Any comments on those? Any questions? No. Then we've got the compliance matters. Anything on those? And then consultation responses to neighbouring authorities. Anything? No. Appeals lodged. So those are the appeals that have been put into the planning inspectorate. And then appeals decided. Did you want to say anything about Clint's Quarry, Andrew?
There's quite a lot in Clint's Quarry. There's a lot of appeal decisions overall, actually, aren't there? Because we've got 2 months worth, so we've got a rather bumper edition of them. 6 of them are enforcement appeals. All bar one of those were dismissed, and the one that was allowed was still found to be a breach of planning control, and it was just approved on ground A, subject to some controls on occupancy. So even there, it was necessary to take enforcement action. Clint's is an interesting one. It's an interesting one for the planning professional, I think. It is a complex case. It's a dormant quarry, and there was dispute between ourselves and the appellants as to whether a planning permission that was granted in 1974 was implemented or not. There was agreement between us that the 1966 permission exists, but dispute about whether a 1974 permission had been implemented. They said it had, we said it hadn't, and that our position was supported by Blankcrake Parish Council and also the Quarry Action Group. The inspector agreed with us. She dismissed the lawful development certificate appeal. She found that on the balance of probabilities, the 1974 permission had not been lawfully commenced, so it just lapsed. So there was agreement with us there, which reassures the local community who had concerns about that permission being brought forward. And then the other aspect to the appeal was an application for a review of the old mineral permissions, which is a process by which historic permissions get modern conditions imposed upon them. And having found that the 1974 permission was not extant, she concluded, again in agreement with ourselves, that you can't then salami slice the ROMP application and just deal with the 1966 bit of an application that's been put forward across 2 planning permissions. It just isn't possible to do that. Complicated site, quite a lot you'll have seen about habitats regulations as well. It's an interesting decision if you're into minerals, and a good outcome from our point of view. An awful lot of work for you, Kevin, in that over years and years and years.
Very much a team effort.
Mostly Kevin. So no, it's a really good outcome for this. It was a lot of work, complicated site, but a good planning outcome. So pleased with that.
Well done, Kevin. Anything I want to ask on appeals, members? Jim?
It's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you to yourselves and the team. That's really good work. And see the work that's gone on in enforcement and then coming through even at appeal is very good. Thank you. It hopefully sends a message across the lakes about the importance.
And so the last of our agenda is just that tree preservation order confirmed at Waterside House at Watermillock. No questions on that? And where? Oh, it's not online. Yes, no, my eyes have gone. Yeah, there's that one at Brock Hall as well. Tree protection order 486 confirmed for information. That's us. We've got no site visit next week, so we'll see the next Development Control Committee meeting next month. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll turn off the streaming.